All right, let's go ahead and get started. So the stream is being recorded. If you guys do miss it, you can watch the recording. I will post it shortly after this ends. Now, looking at the past 24 hours of liquidations, we have $487 million, longs 117 million, shorts 370 million. So we got a nice short squeeze in the market. Great to see there. And in my opinion, this is only going to continue. We've seen how strong price action has been, especially with the AI narrative as well, with Tau, Fetch. We caught that trade nicely. And so we're doing very, very well. And I do think that as long as we just follow our SR lines with our indicators, we'll continue to catch these moves. Now, looking at the liquidation levels. So this is a big one, right? Because right now we're seeing clearly that liquidity is slowly coming to the upside. And what I mean by that is these levels are continuing to rise. And so before they were in the low, 69K, 70K. Now they're rising even higher, 72.6K. And then you can see the shorts be 74.8K. So we're still between these two liquidity levels. And this is something important to remember is, there's not a huge cluster to the upside or to downside, really. It's pretty even, which is what you want to see for healthy price action, right? Because if there's a huge cluster one way, then most likely price would gravitate towards that. So now at least we're giving an option for at least more room to the upside. And even here, looking at the 1 week, now we're seeing that cluster build up near 74.8K. So most likely we'll have one last spike to the upside here. Now there is resistance we'll talk about near around 76K, 75 to 76K, but we'll talk about that in a minute. And I'll show you guys what levels I'm looking at. Now, let's talk about the news, because obviously there's been a lot going on between US and Iran, and there continues to be a lot that happens. So really the big thing to focus on is Bitcoin's resiliency and in general, the resiliency of crypto. And that's something that I don't think many people were expecting, and especially versus the S&P. And that's something I posted in my market update earlier today. I said, hey, the resiliency of Bitcoin is very impressive. And it's almost seems like you have countries now TWAPing into Bitcoin, like just having buy orders. Obviously, it's a way to circumvent sanctions. So it wouldn't surprise me if Iran was buying a lot of Bitcoin right now. But nonetheless, it's very interesting to see just how much we've risen over the past few weeks. Now, some news here. We have a video showing the ship traffic in the Strait of Hormuz over the past 24 hours. So obviously only a few ships getting through, but most of them are still waiting on the sidelines. We also posted in the market update that Turkey and India do have some rite of passage for getting through the strait, but other than that, not many countries are being allowed in. So very curious to see how that evolves moving forward. Also, we have Elon's XAIs recruiting Wall Street bankers, portfolio managers, and traders to train Grok on financial modeling. So now we have Grok actually getting smarter in the financial space. And it would not surprise me at all for people to start using Grok for coding indicators and also just providing advice as far as like a CPA or just a portfolio manager, like in general, right? As they're getting more of these people to help train it. And this is something we've been talking about as well in Off Topic and a few other channels, is the advent of AI and how quickly it's really taking over, and more so even replacing jobs. And really it seems like every day there's something new. And so I implore everyone here to learn AI, to at least get familiar with ChatGPT, Claude, Perplexity, OpenClaw, like some of the new models coming out. Like definitely check them out, guys, because there's so much you can do with it, and you can increase your productivity tenfold and also be more valuable at your job, and it increases your job security as well. Also, we had Trump saying the Fed should hold a special meeting to cut interest rates right now. And this is interesting because you have oil prices near $100, which isn't the best time to cut interest rates. And so I think Trump wants to cut them because he wants it to have a positive impact on the market, right? If the market looks good, he looks good, etc. And so very interesting to see here. We do have the FOMC meeting in 2 days. Don't forget about that. That's going to be at 2:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time when Jerome Powell's speaking on this Wednesday. So that's something to watch out for. But Trump is always putting a lot of pressure on Powell, so I don't think we're going to have any changes for interest rates, honestly. Maybe in June. I think that's the first time people are thinking about that. But we're also going to have Jerome Powell replaced in 2 months, which is hard to believe. Can you believe in exactly 2 months Jerome Powell's going to be replaced? I still can't believe that. It's already here. It seems like we were talking about that last year for a while, and now it's almost here. Let's see. And then other things we have, obviously, crypto's doing really good today. We have Michael Saylor buying 22,337 Bitcoin worth $1.6 billion. Guys, this is a huge buy here. I have not seen Saylor buy $1.6 billion in a while. The other day, last week he bought $1.2 billion worth, but $1.6 billion now. That's very, very surprising, but it shows just how successful he's been. And obviously he's making a lot of money from it. So good to see consistency on his part. And then also let's look at the BRICS news real quick. So we have Russia demanding accountability for U.S. strikes on Grosskoll and Iran that killed 170. So now you have a whole, moral aspect of this war coming into play. And, there's a lot of things going on when that happens. And so very interesting to see there. And then we had a massive fire breakout following Hezbollah missile strikes in Israel. So this is also a big thing going on. And then Trump saying he has no idea who the Iran leader is. We have people wanting to negotiate. We have no idea who they are. So very interesting. I mean, it just shows just how disorganized everything is. Obviously, they killed a lot of their leaders in Iran. And so you're going to have this kind of back and forth and confusion. But very interested to see if they do come with a solution and come with a ceasefire before the end of the month. Now, let's go and look at the market. So looking at the S&P TradFi space. So the S&P did bounce off of 6,600 as we predicted here. Nice little support level. Right now it's at 6,704. RSI is bouncing off that 45 level. If we zoom out, we can see it has bounced from here in the past. But nonetheless, is this a dead cat bounce? We're going to have to wait and see. But at least it is good to see that, the market is still bouncing despite the uncertainty in the war. So I think now people are becoming numb to it in a sense, similar to the Russia-Ukraine war, how that just kept dragging on, right? People just became numb after a while. The headline risk wasn't really there. And so I think we're seeing that with TradFi now, finally catching up with the outperformance of crypto. So now expecting 68.80 for the next target for that. And then also we have gold. So gold is right at 5,000 right now. This is interesting because during a time of war, you would expect gold to be one of those hedges against inflation, hedge against uncertainty. But like I mentioned before, as we see TradFi and crypto outperforming, gold isn't really used against that hedge. I mean, it's showing us, or it's telling us that people aren't really that nervous, right? Or that uncertain. And now they're willing to go risk on. And so very, very interesting turn of events here. And now if gold does close the weekly below 5,000, then I can definitely see 4,500 as the next target. And then after that, 43. And so RSI is at least reset below 80, which is a good sign. So it was overbought for a long time. And obviously the RSI can stay overbought. But the fact that it's closed below 70 now actually is good and does give us room for higher. So we'll have to watch this weekly close in about 6 days and see if we can see any upward price action for gold. If not, then I'm expecting TradFi and crypto to continue higher. Now, oil as well is coming down to its support level of $92. Yes, there is still some drama going on with the Strait of Hormuz. Like I mentioned earlier, a few countries are being let in, a few countries aren't. But at the same time, it shows that, there's still a lot of volatility and concern about oil's price, because this in turn raises the gas prices at the US, in the US, around the world. Also raises transportation costs, which increases cost of goods because people can't get those goods through the strait. So obviously more scarcity raises prices, etc. Right? You see how this has second and third order effects whenever you have oil as high as it is. Now, if we zoom out, we can see that, like I mentioned before, during the Russia-Ukraine war in February, March 2022, what happened with oil's price. So literally the same thing happened, right? Same thing happened. We broke above 100. We actually went up to a high. I believe this was almost 130. Okay. Almost 130 before it topped out in May and then declined. So is that going to happen this time around? We got near 120. That was a pretty close price. Is this going to basically bleed down like it did before and then have another spike towards, in the middle of April? That's possible too if this war drags on. And we can see that as well based off Polymarket if we look at the ceasefire, the poll here. So we have March 31st, only a 11% chance that there's going to be a ceasefire. And then April 30th, only a 36% chance. So very interesting results here. And usually there's a lot of insiders on these markets. And so the fact that March 31st is only 11%, it can still happen. But that's why I say the price of oil may stay at these elevated levels, or at least may still continue to rise over the next month, because a ceasefire is not that likely. So who knows what's going to happen? We're going to have to see, but there is always a lot of volatility in war nonetheless. So let's keep an eye on that. And then last but not least, we have the DXY, the dollar. So the dollar is showing a rejection off that $100 level, psychological as well. And because of that, inverse correlation coming back, S&P and crypto is doing well as the DXY does decline. So good to see that, and good to see a lot of strength in the market. Now let's go and look at the market. Okay, so the market's been doing great the past few days, and we've been talking about it as well. Bitcoin's up 2.9% to 74K. Ethereum 9.7% to 2316. We do have a trade in place there by Ed, so great to see that. Also, Solana up 6.3% to $94. Now, for those asking, my Solana trade is still in play. The limit short between $96 to $100. I still have that in play, so just waiting on that to get tagged. There's a lot of resistance levels and people are getting euphoric. So it's the first perfect time to look for shorts. Now, looking at the top gainers. So Fetch up 24%. This is a token we literally called yesterday. So we called it and it actually got down, I believe, 19.3 cents. So if any of you guys were able to buy it there. But Fetch, I mean, did great for us, right? And I saw that Salo was asking, do you think Fetch drops again anytime soon? I'll actually go over some TA for Fetch in a minute. But it just shows, guys, when you pay attention to these chart patterns, especially on the weekly, right? We saw that Fetch had a bullish divergence on the weekly, the same that it had in November 2022 before the 600% rise. And so TA actually works, especially on higher time frames when the narrative is there, when you have tokens like Tau pumping, even WorldCoin virtual. Again, this whole AI narrative is coming back. We're going for round 2 or even round 3 at this point with the AI agent narrative. And so Fetch was one of the first ones, and that's why I was looking at it. And it's also got a lot of attention on X. And so one of the reasons why I was picking it there. Now, Pepe up 17%, Zcash 13%, Polkadot 12%. Real quick, I want to mention Pepe. So the fact that Pepe is rising is definitely a testament here because you have Ethereum, right, rising is around 2317. And what's the beta play to Ethereum? What's one of the biggest beta plays to Ethereum? Well, it's Pepe. It's on the Ethereum network. And that's what we talk about as well, is we say focus on the beta plays if you want to, get even bigger return. Now, beta plays, the thing about them is they don't last as long, right? Meaning, okay, they have a quick pump. It's probably going to be more than the original asset, but then they're going to dump, and then the original asset is going to take over. So the first mover advantage is always going to be the best, right? But you always have beta plays if you want to catch a bigger move. And so Pepe is one of those. With Ethereum. And then also you have a few other big ones. People obviously look at Ethereum Classic. That's always a big beta play once Ethereum pumps. And then also there's a few others. And so just something to watch out for. When you have Ethereum starting to pump, what are the big beta plays to look for? And you can focus on those. Now also Zcash. So the privacy narrative is going to continue to be big, guys. This isn't going away. And the reason I say that is because privacy, as the world becomes more, I should say, there's more surveillance in the world, right? You've seen that with Palantir, and there's mass surveillance on everyone. People really want to focus on privacy as much as possible. And even with, a lot of these other AI agents that are being invented, I mean, privacy is definitely harder to come by now. And also with criminals, like it or not, whenever there's all these scams going on, they wash their money in Monero or in these privacy tokens. And so it's always going to be a need on that side as well. And so it's always going to be a need for privacy tokens one way or the other. And you also had a lot of big CEOs talking about it as well. And so that's why I think the privacy narrative is going to continue. It's going to be a big narrative at 2026. And then below that, you have a few others, Caspa, Bonk, Athena, etc. So very curious to see if these continue. But nonetheless, it is good to see we did catch the top gainer of the day, and we'll continue to look for the next big token. But like I said, I am still in Fetch. Stop losses are at break even right now, and looking for it to go much higher. And then Hyperliquid, you can see, is always a good bet in your portfolio long term. Now let's look at the Fear and Greed Index. So it's at 42. Guys, the Fear and Greed Index is very good right now. And I say that because it's in neutral, finally, for the past few days. And this is important because we were in extreme fear for a month. And people think, oh, when you're in extreme fear, it means automatically buy. Well, that's not necessarily the case. It literally means people are extremely fearful, they're uncertain, and the market isn't as good. In a bear market, when you have extreme fear, it just means that it can drag on longer, right? It doesn't mean it's going to be like an instant reversal like it was in the beginning of 2025. Like extreme fear, buy. It's not like that. When you're in a bear market, extreme fear can mean prices are lower or chopping. So what you really want to see is price get out of extreme fear and hold above it like it is here, like we did once we get out into the fear area. Then that means people are getting more confident. There's going to be more capital flowing into the market, and then eventually you're going to have prices rise. Okay, so that's kind of the shift from the accumulation / decline phase of extreme fear. Once you're getting out of that, then that's when you actually have more money coming in. And then we're getting into neutral. So really now people are getting more confident. You're seeing that in the market. You're seeing that on X. You're even seeing that with ETF flows. And that's something we'll talk about as well. So when we look at ETF flows, all last week for Bitcoin, we had positive inflows. So institutions were confident that Bitcoin is going to continue to outperform. I mean, this was just a clear sign here. And I talked about this every video that I placed, every market update, every alpha brief that I mentioned. I said, hey guys, ETF flows are really good here. And this is what you want to see. And now that you have institutions confident, Now we look to the TA side of it and say, okay, what levels do we want to look to buy now if we are still in a bullish uptrend, or which levels do we want to look to short now if people are getting euphoric, right? You got to look at both sides here. You got to be realistic with both sides, and we'll talk about that as well. But very curious to see if we continue to have positive inflows. I assume we will, just looking at the market right now, pretty obvious that we will. And if we look at Ethereum, then we can see same thing, right? Last week we had 4 days of inflows, so not quite the same bullishness as Bitcoin, which had all 5. But like I said, today, let's see what happens, because Ethereum did actually lead the rally today, which is something that I did not expect. You know, Bitcoin has been very, very strong. Now Ethereum finally broke out of its shell, broke some key resistance levels, 21 and 2200, and now it's getting up towards that major resistance near 2400. So that's something I'm watching closely, and let's see if those flows do agree with the current price action. Now, let's go over some TA. We're going to go over Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana, Hyperliquid, Fetch, and then any others that you guys want to go up. Chicken Nugget says, ETH is performing incredibly compared to Bitcoin and Sol, up 7% on the day. Absolutely. Absolutely, right? I mean, ETH is doing amazing right now. And so let's see what happens. Usually ETH does precede, I don't want to say alt season, but it does precede a big run in altcoins. And so ETH, XRP, BNB, I mean, anytime those tokens start pumping, usually you have a huge pump in altcoins. But ETH is the main one. If it starts really going, then everything else follows. So Bitcoin's at 74.1K. Now, something to watch here is it is above the 50-day EMA. Okay, why is that important? Well, if we zoom out, let's see the 50-day EMA. So we couldn't break above it in January 28th. We couldn't break above it January 23rd. And when we did break above it, you know, it's just for a couple candles, broke back down, couple candles, broke back down. But you can see here that it doesn't stay above it for long, right? It doesn't stay above it for long. Now here, yes, there's some resistance. We turned it into support, resistance, resistance, a lot of volatility there, support, right? So it is significant. It is a significant moving average. And that's why I'm watching it, because if we do close above it, there is a chance, I mean, we could have one of these moves here where, let me go ahead and get out the ruler for you guys. So, I mean, if we do close above it, I mean, that's what, it went up 6.72% here. Let's see, here it went up, let's see, 3.36%. And then do we have any others? And then here it went up. And again, I'm just seeing how much it goes up before it comes back down. Here it went up 2.72%. So if we take a quick average, 6.72 plus, let's just call it 3.6 plus 2.7 divided by 3, that's an average of 4.3%. Okay, around 4.3%. Just looking at the past 3 times it went over. So 4.3%, if we actually bring that over here, I mean, that's basically, what is that going to be, around 76K, where the next resistance level is? Okay, so realistically, I could see Bitcoin coming up to around 76K before rejecting. I mean, just based off the past 3 times that it went above the 50-day EMA. Okay, so that's what I would watch for now, is I would watch for potentially 76K being that level that it declines, or being that level that it breaks through, reaches before rejecting. And so that's something I'm watching closely there. And again, a lot of people are euphoric right now, but the fact that we technically are still in a bear market, just like we were in January, right? When we crossed above it and crossed back down, and just like we were towards the end of October. Okay. So, I mean, you're seeing when we started the bear market and just kind of how that happened. So if we're literally playing the same game here, then we're going to 76K and then coming back down. So let's see if that happens. If that doesn't happen, if we continue higher, then, I mean, I could give it up to 6.7%, and that would be, we'll say close to 78K. Okay, and if we go above 78K, then at that point, okay, yes, we're definitely going to these higher targets, let's say probably 85. But until then I still target around 76K for a potential short area, and then lower from there. So we're gonna have to watch and see. But again, the strength is very, very impressive. I'll say that. And you can't ignore the strength here. But just looking at the stochastic RSI on the daily, I mean, it's overbought. Every time it becomes overbought, we have a pullback, right? Overbought, pullback, overbought, pullback. Okay, so eventually we should have some type of pullback. And during all these times that it was overbought, the RSI was way down here. Now the RSI is starting to get more closer to that overbought area. So if the RSI gets to this overbought area, while the stochastic RSI is overbought, I mean, you've seen what happens when these two are overbought. Literally right here, right? Huge drop. Okay, not saying that's going to happen, but if we're still in the bear market, which we are, and if we're still following technicals, which we are, then that's something I'd watch out for as well. So again, just looking at both sides here, it's very bullish what it's doing right now. If it closes above the 50-day EMA and this resistance, and definitely I could see 76K, but we're just playing this level by level at this point, just looking at our indicators. Now, let's go ahead and look at ETH. Ed says 76K aligns with someone's short call. That does. I wonder who called the short on Bitcoin for 76K. That's a good question, Ed. I wonder who called that. Very interesting. Oh, that's right. Ed called that. Good stuff. So there's a lot of confluence, guys. When you have confluence with different team members, always a good sign there. But looking at Ethereum, Ethereum is just incredible right now. I mean, you've seen this candle. It's at 2339. And so what am I looking at right here? Well, a few things, okay? Stochastic RSI, overbought. RSI is getting very close to overbought, okay? Last time it happened, last time it was at these levels, near here, what happened with price? Well, you can see here, pullback. You can see here, pullback, okay? So it's getting close to these levels. Also, we have this 2377 resistance. Now, you can see why is this a big level? Because we bounced multiple times over here, we bounced off it here, and then we rejected off it here. So now, this 2377 resistance is major resistance, okay? So that's what I'm watching right now, is I'm not letting emotions take hold. I'm saying, okay, well, RSI is getting close to overbought. Stock RSI is already way overbought. We're getting close to resistance. People are euphoric. Ethereum's outperforming. Altcoins are going crazy. I don't think it's far-fetched to say that we could have a pullback in the near future once we get to 2377, 2380. Now, yes, we could wick above it, but this is something I'm watching. Now, the 50-day EMA, same story here. Okay, so we crossed above the 50-day EMA a couple times. If we go ahead and just draw that, we went up, what, 5.93%. We went up 8.62%. And then we went up 3.7%. And I'm just going to do one more, guys. And we went up above the 50 EMA 3%. Okay, so we take an average of that. So 3.06 plus 3.87 plus 5.93 plus 8.62 divided by 4. It's going to be 5.37%. Okay, so 5.37%. So let's see where that lands us. Oh, pretty much right where we're at. Okay, so yeah, so it lands us at 2332. So pretty much right where we're at. If we want to go the highest, 8.62%, well, it's going to be right about here. Okay, that's going to take us to about $2,400. So potentially, if we're looking at the past of how much we rose above the 50 EMA, I mean, the top is 2,400, and then really the average is around the current levels. So very curious to see. Very curious to see. And I mean, it's funny too. I mean, the time right now, it's 1:27 Central Standard Time. Usually we top out near this time, just based off history. Usually we top out between 1 and 2 p.m. CST. So very curious to see if we follow that. Now, also something to keep in mind is look at the 4-hour here. I mean, 4-hour is way overbought, guys. Like 4-hour is crazy. Last time we were this overbought on the 4-hour was way back in January 13th. And what happened there? We had a big pullback afterwards. Let's look at January 26th, big pullback. Also here, January 2nd, we had a pullback, but then we had a bounce and went higher there. So something to keep in mind there. But nonetheless, you're just seeing all the technicals to watch. Now, also, we could also pull up the candle matrix indicator. Let's get that going. Okay. So even the candle matrix indicator now, you're seeing red candles. Means, I mean, we haven't had red candles since, when was the last time we had red candles? Probably since up here, okay? So beginning of January, before we had a little pullback before higher. And then we also had a red candle up here into beginning of December before we had the big pullback. And even a red candle here before we had a little pullback. And so very curious. I mean, it just shows that we are definitely getting overbought. Now we go to the daily. The daily is showing us a dark orange candle. Last time we had a dark orange candle, we had like one or two more, and then we had a pullback, right? From 33.15 down to 3,062. So almost 8% pullback there. And then we had orange candles up here in August. And then we had a pullback, a pretty large pullback as well. That was 15-20%. And so you can see that in sustainable runs, yes, these orange candles can just mean a little consolidation before a lot higher. But I mean, the fact that we're in a bear market right now, very hard to see that. Unless there's some countries that are just TWAPing in and buying and just take us much higher, right? But usually dark orange candles mean, okay, there's some type of pullback near. So that's something we have to watch out for. But yeah, very curious to see. Very curious to see what happens with this as far as these top signals are concerned. Now let's go ahead and, well, let's say we do have a pullback, right? At that point, if we do have a pullback near 23.77, then I would expect some type of bounce near 22.10. I would expect some type of bounce near this level because we were trying to break above it for so long. We couldn't. We hit resistance. It's also the 50-day EMA. So now I expect it to turn into support. So I mean, something like this is very possible, right? This would not surprise me at all. We have maybe something up here, go all the way down, and then hit support near there. That'd be very, very healthy. But if we can't hold 22.10, then at that point, I'd look for 2100 as it was a big area of resistance. Now I'd expect it to turn into support. Okay, so these are the points. Now, if we do close above 2400, then it's likely we're going much higher to 2550 or even this big resistance zone of 2750 to 2820. So it all depends on where the daily is closing at. If the daily still closes below, let's say 2400, below here, then technically we're still fine, or we're still expecting a pullback to 2210. But if not, and we close above, then well, we're probably going to bounce near 2370 and then go a little bit higher from there. So that's something to watch out for. All right. Now let's go ahead and look at Solana. Let's see. We also have some comments real quick. Let's go ahead and read on the chat. Let's see. Yep. We have Della saying 2377 TP, then wait for 2400 rejection for short. Possible, yes. If you're in a long on Ethereum, yeah, I would look to TP near these current levels between like 2335 to 2380. And then look at potential short. Artha says bear moon in 2 days. Ooh, very interesting. We're going to have to check that out. New moon. Chicken Nugget, a lot of confluence for a top coming soon. Yeah, a lot of confluence. But you're seeing now the euphoria, right? The euphoria on X, the euphoria in the market. We're going much higher. You're seeing targets now. Bitcoin's going to 85K, 90K. You know, let's keep it going, right? But I do feel, I mean, there's kind of something artificial about this going on. But nonetheless, you know, the trend is your friend. So you're playing it level by level. Artha says pump into FOMC. Yes, that's also been another. Let's actually look at that real quick, guys. Let's look at that real quick with the FOMC. So 1 second. Let me just. Let's see. 1 second, guys. Okay. So let's look at that real quick because the last FOMC meeting we had was that. Trying to remember now. Was that January 20th? Let me actually look real quick. Let me just take a side window real quick. FOMC dates. Okay. Okay, let me go ahead and paste this in here real quick. So let's just bring this up. So let's look at the FOMC dates real quick. So 2026, we had one that was January 28th. Okay, so January 28th. And then in December, it was December 10th. So January 28th and December 10th. Let's just, okay. January 28th, mark the top on that FOMC date. And then I say December 10th. Let's look at December 10th. December 10th, mark the top there. Okay. So you're seeing these FOMC days mark the top. Okay. Very interesting there. And then price goes lower. Price goes lower. Okay. So if we have the FOMC date, March 18th, could that mean pump into FOMC and then top out? All right. It's possible if we're looking at these. I mean, we can do one more just to get some more data points here. So November was, what, November 7th? Is that the last FOMC? Okay, so November 7th, we can look at that date. Whoops. Okay, so November 7th, we had a pump that day, and then we had a dump the next day. You know, we had a drop the next day. And then we had one more pump, and then finally a drop. So more so than not, usually after the FOMC meeting, we have a drop the next day. I mean, that seems to be a common theme. And we can even do one more, September 18th. Let's check that out. So September 18th, right here, okay? September 18th, we marked a top, and then we fell. So yeah, you're seeing a pattern with these FOMC days. Very, very interesting. Good analysis there, Artha. Pumping into the FOMC. Very, very interesting there. So curious. Yeah, that's a good analysis point, guys. A lot of good data on this live stream. All right, now let's go to Solana. Let's see how that's looking. So Solana is near 90, is at $95. Solana is pumping like crazy as well. So it's doing very, very good. And again, same thing. Okay, we're going to do the same analysis we did with Ethereum and Bitcoin. So stochastic RSI on the daily, overbought. Okay, that's the first ingredient. You don't just short because it's overbought. You look at other things as well. RSI is getting closer. It's still a little bit further away than overbought than Ethereum and Bitcoin, but it's getting closer, right? It's inching closer to that overbought territory. Now, we're at the 50-day EMA as well. 50-day EMA is at 94.20. So we're crossing above that. Okay, now previously, Solana usually gets a little bit higher. Now you can see here that we did reject off the 50-day EMA. Okay, multiple times here. So it does respect it and then treats it as support. Now let's go ahead and look at when it did close above or cross above the 50-day EMA, just so we can do the same type of analysis as we did with Ethereum as well. So let's see. So when it crossed above it, it went 5.3%, and then we crossed above it again, and it went to a high of 8.73%. Okay, so those two, if we're taking an average, 8.73 plus 5.13 divided by 2, 7%. So 7% on average, it goes above the 50-day EMA before rejecting. So if we draw a line there, right about there, okay? So 7%, it's going to be $101. So it's possible that Solana goes to $101 before rejecting. Now, yes, the shorts are between 96 to 100, okay? In this box, we have shorts. So we'd probably catch all of that. And then our DCA would probably be around 98. And then we'd look for a pullback near 93, would be our first take profit near 93.75. Okay, that's the play that I'm looking at right now. Now, where is the highest it can go? Well, 8.73%. It's gone before. So if we have that, I mean, that would take us to 102.50. Our stop loss, I believe, was it 4-hour close? Let me just double check real quick. I believe it was a 4-hour close above the 105, but I'll double check. So a 4-hour close above 102.40. That's what it was, because I'm trying to keep the risk tight here. So 4-hour close above 102.40 is where the stop loss would be. And I said it can go as high up as 102.50. Okay. Now it can go as high up as that. It doesn't mean it's going to close above that. That's why I had the 4-hour close, because if we end up going that high and we close above, the chances are we're at least tagging 105, if not much, much higher. So that is my thought process on the Solana short right now. Is yes, we can go as high as 102.50 on average. We're going to about 102 or 101, but it doesn't mean we have to go up to 101, right? We've went down 5% before. which would be, around here, 99.40. Okay. So we're definitely getting a lot of the short action up here. And like Arthur was saying, if we're pumping into the FOMC, then at that point, I mean, you can expect, something up here and then dropping afterwards, right? I mean, that would be perfect, right? Pumping into the FOMC, forming a top, and then coming back down. And at that point, the RSI would be pretty close to overbought. It'd probably be up here at that point. Stock RSI would be way overbought for a few days. And then the 4 hour, obviously right now, the 4 hour is pretty crazy. Let me go ahead and delete this so you guys can see it. But you can see the 4 hour RSI is overbought. Stock RSI is overbought. And so the last time we were here was February 25th. Or no, February 25th. And look what happened there. We had a huge pullback when the RSI and the stochastic RSI on the 4 hour were both overbought. Look what happened here. February 14th, Valentine's Day. Happy Valentine's Day. We had a huge drop. So RSI is overbought, stock RSI is overbought. Okay, let's keep going. Let's keep going. When was the RSI? Okay, maybe right here. Let me double check if this is, 70.13. So this was overbought as well. What happened here? Both were overbought. We had a pullback from 142.60 down to 138.36. Okay, so what is that, a 3% move? And so you can see just and then we formed a bearish divergence, lower high, higher high. We fell after that. And so you're seeing just the patterns, guys. You're seeing the patterns here. Now, yes, we could have a pullback and then continue higher. That's possible. But we have to play this level by level. And we're basing it now off being in a bear market. Okay, so everything is in the lens of being in a bear market. Not to say we can't go higher, but statistics-wise, probabilities-wise, which all trading is, we just have to play these levels by levels. So that's what I would expect. If we're pumping into the FOMC, yes, but both these are overbought, so expecting some type of pullback soon. Ed says, great soul level aligns with the top of the 12-hour channel since September, plus the daily golden pocket. Oh, yes. Let's actually go over that as well, Ed. And real quick, let me just do some final analysis here. So yeah, basically what I'm looking at right now is a daily close above 193.20, because that's the level that we couldn't close above before. And then 2, a daily close above the 50-day EMA. If we get both of those, then yes, Solana's going between 96 to 100, absolutely. Okay, absolutely. But if we're closing below, let's say we close below $93 on the daily in, what is that, 5 hours? Then, oh yeah, we're definitely going lower. Okay, at that point, pullback is confirmed. We're rejecting, and now we're probably going back to 88. So the daily close is going to tell us a lot. But that's, again, playing level by level, staying patient. And that seems to be the name of the game here, is staying patient and placing your orders way above or way below where you think price is going to go. Because most people who place their shorts at 93, they're sweating right now, right? Because we finally broke through. The more times you test resistance, the weaker it becomes. The more times you test support, the weaker it becomes. So eventually we knew this was going to happen. We knew this was going to break. Now it's happening. And now where's the next liquidity cluster, supply zone, etc.? So we're watching that very closely. Now to go on Ed's point for the 12-hour top of the channel, let's go ahead and go over that real quick. So one, he says, lines top of the 12-hour channel since September, plus a daily golden pocket. And so if we actually, let me go ahead and draw this real quick. So there's a few things that we can draw here, all right? Now, I'm just drawing a few levels here. Okay, so if we, let's see, if we can actually, because this depends here, right? So if we're taking, higher to lower, and then we're looking for, any type of pump higher. If this is going to be a huge pump, then obviously we're going much higher. But if we're taking it just from the fact of, okay, let's see where we rejected from last time, right? And then we can come down here. And now if this is its own level, then yes, this would come into this little daily golden pocket area here. The 786 is 99.12, okay? And then you continue lower after that. That would be one of the first ones we'd be looking at. Now, as Ed says, we do have a 12-hour channel. So top of the 12-hour channel, it shows that you can see here, based off of the 12-hour, I mean, it's perfect, right? If you look at, let's go ahead and draw some parallel lines. Okay, so let me go ahead and Let's see. Actually, let me take it a normal trend line here. So if you have this trend line where we've rejected from in the past multiple times, we're getting very close to that, right? We're getting very close to that. Yes, we can wick above it, but we're getting very close to it. Now, also on the 12 hour, something I'm noticing is potential here is an ascending wedge. Okay, so you're making, and we can even drag it all the way back down here to this wick. So at this point, you're bouncing off of this level. You're rejecting off of this resistance level. And so this ascending wedge could be seen as, okay, we could reach, let's say we pump into the FOMC around 96.30, boom, reject, and then come all the way back down to the 88 level, and then continue bouncing higher, right? And finally have a huge drop, let's say beginning of April at $100, and then we just fall off a cliff. So this is very possible as well. Now, this isn't the prettiest ascending wedge. I'd much prefer it to be, you know, something like this and this, you know, something that's much more pointed, but this isn't bad. And so that's something I'm watching out for as well. But with that said, again, just being patient with Solana here, and we can even look at the candle matrix indicator as well to see where we're at with that. So you can see here, we are forming, we do have a red candle right now on Solana. So definitely getting overheated here. Last time we had a red candle on the 12 hour, you can see we had some last minute pumps a few candles later and then finally rejected, okay? Which would make sense if we're pumping into this $100 level and then rejecting. So that's also a play. And then we had an X mark the top from that. Now, if we go to the 4 hour, same thing here, okay? We had a red candle, had a wick up, mark the top. Here we have some dark orange candles and waiting to get a red one here to mark the top on that. And then finally with the daily is still somewhat fine as far as not being overheated yet, but nonetheless, Solana doesn't really get to those red candles on the daily or even dark orange, only a couple times, and it marks the top. And so that's something we're watching as well. But as you can see, we are starting to get overheated on a few lower time frames. And that kind of lines up with where the indicators are at. RSI is close to being overbought in the 12 hour. So yeah, getting close, guys, getting close. So watch out for it. And with that said, let's go ahead and go over a few other tokens such as Fetch, and then also, I believe, Hyperliquid and a few others. So let's go over Fetch, okay? Fetch reached our TP1 just under 25 cents before rejecting. So perfect level there. Now, let's go over the reasons why I called Fetch yesterday. So the reason was, if you look at the indicators and you look at the RSI, you can see we had a higher low on the RSI in November 2022. And then you see price made a lower low. So this is a bullish divergence. This is how bottoms are formed. From there, we went much higher. Okay? So in that case, you're seeing the exact reason. Okay, we formed the bottom, boom, and it was on the weekly. And the stock RSI had a higher low as well. Now, if we scroll over to our current levels, we're clearly making lower lows on price, but the RSI is making higher lows. The stock RSI is making higher lows. Doesn't this more or less look identical to you? Right? This area, this area, this area, and this area, right? Like, don't these look fairly identical here? And so now, when we had the pump, I mean, this thing went up over 600%. I don't know if we're gonna go over 600%, but nonetheless, I mean, it's pretty promising here. And you also have Tau outperforming and the AI agent narrative very big in the news, right? And so could be a repeat here. And just remind me, guys, was ChatGPT launched in November as well? Was it launched November 2022? I need to check that actually. Let me double check. Yeah. Okay, look at this. So let me actually pull that. It was. So ChatGPT's release date was November 30th, 2022. So you can see the confluence here where you had AI very prevalent in the news, fetch pump on that ChatGPT release, AI agents, right? And now we're seeing AI agents make a comeback. Similar story. History doesn't always repeat, but it often rhymes. And so, yeah, so right now, again, TP1's taken, looking for TP2 near 30 cents, and then TP3 just below this resistance here, around 35 cents. So that's how I'm playing fetch right now. It seems to be playing out perfectly. A lot of people are catching on as well. So that's where you have a lot of confluence there now. I know that Salu asked, do you think FET drops again anytime soon? So let's do some TA on the lower time frames. So the daily is way overbought. So absolutely we're going to drop again. And so we took profit at the perfect time here. Now, how low do I think we're going to drop? Well, if we just look at the standard SR lines, we could say, again, 19 cents could be a level. I don't know if we're going to go that low. I think more realistic is around 22 cents because we had support, resistance, right? So resistance turns support here. So I do think that probably 22 cents, which coincides with the 100-day EMA, would be a good level to buy. 22 cents. If you're not in right now, 22 cents may be a good level to buy. But again, right now, stop losses are at break even. So kind of free trade here. But right now, watching that level. Now, the next resistance levels on the daily is going to be around here, okay? That's 27 cents. Previous resistance, turn support, turn resistance. And so that's the level I'm watching. And then afterwards, we do have this level here near the 200 EMA, but I would look for also 33 cents to be a major level just based off SR lines. And you could even say here, where you've rejected from multiple times. 30 cents where we have our take profit, our second take profit. Okay. So these are the levels I'm watching. So if you're curious to get in, 22 cents, potentially DC it down to 19. But yeah, I definitely would not be buying here. I mean, with the RSI as overbought as it is on the daily and the stock RSI same, like we definitely need to pull back. We definitely need a reset of that. So, but good to see at least price followed through on that. Next, let's go over Hyperliquid. So Hyperliquid is one I like to go over. It's a very good token. And honestly, it does good no matter what, right? It does good in a bear market, bull market. I mean, Hyperliquid, because anytime there's large liquidations, you have Hyperliquid using their fees to buy back the token. So we're doing very, very good right now. Now, where's the next resistance? Well, $40 is big resistance. We basically reached it. We reached 39.70, so almost there. But it's big resistance, okay? Because you can see here, support, resistance, support, basically support. So this $40 is a big level, psychological as well. On top of that, look where the RSI is at. The RSI is almost overbought. Stock RSI is already overbought. Okay, so getting close here. Now, what I will say is the RSI isn't forming a bearish divergence right now. Like the RSI is making higher highs while price makes higher highs. So it's agreeing with price. If the RSI, let's say the RSI was doing something like this, where it was, you know, going up and then kind of making lower highs like that, then yeah, at that point I would say, okay, you're making higher highs in price, lower highs with the RSI, we're definitely going down. But here it shows there's actual demand with Hyperliquid. So at the very least, I'd play some shorts near 40. I'd be ready for it. I'd be ready for the RSI to get overbought, have a pullback, and then look to buy potentially near 38. But really, I'd be more patient looking at 35.80 because I do expect a larger pullback to happen, especially on the daily. So that's a level I would watch. But yeah, Hyperliquid looks good though. I mean, Hyperliquid looks good, and it's good to see at least it's continuing to outperform in the market. All right, no problem, Salu. I'm glad I could help you out there. Does anyone else have any other questions? We can also look at a few other tokens or a few other pairings. One can be the ETH BTC chart. So this actually played out nicely, where you had the ETH BTC at 0.0285 and then have a nice bounce off support. And now look where the RSI is at though. RSI and stock RSI nearly overbought. And so yes, we do need a pullback soon, expecting some type of pullback soon, but the strength is impressive. Now we go to the weekly. Weekly is technically just getting started. And this is where time frame analysis comes into play. Okay, so the weekly, we're looking at it crossing above the signal line. We're looking at the stock RSI, technically having a bullish divergence here on ETH BTC, where you have higher low in price, and then you're seeing the pairing make a lower low. You see, so there's a lot of confluence here, at least on the stock RSI. Now the RSI didn't have that. RSI made lower lows. So again, that's where it's not as strong. We don't have both of them there. But the fact that we're bouncing is good, but we do have some resistance coming up. 0.32, okay? There's major resistance on the weekly. So we could still outperform, but of course we can still chop in between. So what this tells me is we do need to have a pullback. We do need to have a cool down very soon. Probably going to have it over the next few days, like Arthur says, pumping into the FOMC. But it is good to see at least these levels are still being respected and still TA works on pairings. Now let's go ahead and look at USDT dominance. So this is a great chart. I love this here because USDT dominance shows us if people are one, getting out of stables and buying Bitcoin and alts, or selling Bitcoin and alts and investing into stables. So right now we're seeing USDT dominance decline, which means people are getting out of stables and investing into Bitcoin and alts. And this was a support level I was watching closely, the 7.62%, because we bounced off of that October 2nd of 2023. So this was a big support level. The fact that we've closed it below that on the weekly, right, was a clear sign that, okay, we're definitely going to make some noise here. And we're definitely going to go a lot higher after that. So that was the first sign, right? We closed below that on the weekly. Now, where's the next target? Well, if we're looking at standard SR lines, I believe the obvious target becomes this major one at 7%, which tells us, yes, there's still room to go. There's still room to go. And on top of this, we have the RSI overbought, stock RSI overbought. So you can see when these are in confluence, guys, they play out. They eventually do play out. And now if we look at the daily is getting close to oversold. So the RSI or the stock RSI is oversold. The RSI is almost oversold. And so what this means is, yes, we're probably going to have a slight bounce in the future, which all of this is lining up to what we're talking about, pumping into the FOMC, then having a pullback. Most indicators are starting to get overbought in the daily. Most people are getting euphoric, right? This is always what happens before a pullback. People are euphoric. There's even people in my chat saying, guys, do we still believe Bitcoin's going to go down to 60K this year? There's people asking if they still think Bitcoin's going down to 60K. And so that tells you the doubt in people's minds that we're still going to go lower this year. Could 60K have been the cycle bottom? It's possible. But based off of history, I mean, I don't know if it's probable, right? And that's something I'll go over after this chart. I'm going to go over the cycle chart, Bitcoin cycle chart, where I compare 2022 versus now. Chicken Nugget says, collect a ton of longs before much lower classic move. It is, yeah, 100%. And could I be wrong? Could we just go to the stratosphere right now and make new all-time highs? Yes. But just it's hard for me to see that based off of history. So I am expecting some type of bounce over the next few days with USDT dominance once we get support or once we get RSI a little bit more oversold. But yeah, 7.04%, you can definitely expect us to have some type of bounce there. Also coinciding with the 100-day EMA. So that'd be a good level to start looking for shorts if we get close to that over the next few days. Now let's go over the cycle chart I was talking about. And then we'll go over Bitcoin dominance and TOTAL3. 1 second, guys. Okay. Also, while everyone is here, if any of you have not filled out the survey form, please do that, guys. Please do that. I'll link it again here. We posted it in the announcements channel. And so if you guys haven't seen the announcements, please do so. But yeah, fill out that form if you haven't. Completely anonymous. We don't even take your email. Just give us the honest feedback, what you want, what you like in the group, what you don't like in the group, what you want to see more of. And for Data Alpha Circle 2.0 launching within the next few weeks, there's going to be a lot of improvements in the group. So please complete that if you have not. And thank you for those that have. Now let's go ahead and look at this cycle chart. Okay. So this cycle chart is something I like to show you guys. And also let me go ahead and link this in the comments so you guys have it. All right, so this cycle chart, what is this telling us? And I go over this usually every stream because I at least want to get a good idea of where we're going. Okay, so March 2022, we had the Russia-Ukraine war. February, March. February, March of this year, we have the US-Iran war. 2022, we're in a bear market. 2026, we're in a bear market. Okay, so you're seeing the confluence here. Now, we had a bounce for the Russia-Ukraine war. We had a bounce into April. What's going on right now? We're having a bounce into April. How crazy is that, right? So how much did we bounce in April? Well, let's check it out. We bounced in April, or I say February to end of March. 27% was where we wicked, candle close, about 20. So let's just say 25%. Okay, round number, 25. So 25% is how much we bounced. Now, I mean, 25% is quite a lot. And so if we take beginning of March and we go all the way to 25%, I mean, that's going to give us, 382. That's going to make, around $82,000. Still possible to get up to 82,000. So if we're looking at both sides here, the long side and the short side, and this is just so you guys have an idea of targets, okay? If we do play this exactly like we did in 2022, then we're going up to 82,000. So that's a level to keep in mind. It'd be a great short level, okay? You can see this wick here. If you can see that November of 2025, we have this wick down here. So usually it'd be resistance somewhere near there. And so 82K is my top target for this pump that we're having right now. If we just start blowing through resistance, okay, 82K is what I look to short. Potentially you could get up to 85K, this major support in November. It could still happen as well. But yeah, 82K would be the top there. Now, let's look at a few bearish targets now, okay? So in the past, let me go ahead and hide the drawings. In the past, we have bounced off of the SMA, the 200 weekly SMA. Okay, bounced off of that, bounced off of that. I know Benjamin Cohen talked about this. Rejected, bounce, bounce. Okay, how below or how low did we go for the 200 SMA before? Well, if we look at history, we actually went down 30% from the 200 SMA. 30%, and then so 30% would take us down to 40K. 40K is one data point. Now, what other indicator are we looking at? Besides the 200 SMA, also have the 200 EMA. 200 EMA arguably is even more accurate. We bounced, we rejected perfectly, then we treated it as support. But we still went below the 200 EMA. How much below the 200 EMA did we go? Well, we went below it 43%. 43% from where it's at now is going to be roughly 40K. Okay, 38K, but it's going to be 40K. So now 2 data points for 40K. Now, let's go ahead and look at, in general, how much we dropped from the highs. So from the highs to the lows, we dropped around 75%. We look at 75% from the top to the bottom, and that takes us down to 30K. So 1 data point for 30K, 2 for 40K. Now, let's go ahead and look at one more. Well, what about Fibonacci's, okay? We take a Fibonacci from the cycle low of 2018 all the way to the cycle high of 2021. And then we draw that Fibonacci out. Where did price bounce? Well, look at the 786 near 16K. That was the bottom. If we take a Fibonacci from the cycle low of 2022 to the cycle high of 2025, where's the 786? It's at 38.7K, so 40K. So 3 data points for 40K, 1 data point for 30K. Now, let's look at the Fibonacci some more. Where did we reject once we bounced? We rejected off the golden pocket, okay, before finally treating that as support between the 618 and the 65. Now, let's go ahead and look at the golden pocket. Where's the golden pocket? Here. It's between 53 to 57K. So this 53 to 57K level would, in my opinion, be one of the targets for a bottom, for a possible bottom, around 55K. Because there is confluence with the horizontal support from September of 2024 and July of 2024. It's around 54K. So the golden pocket plus this, plus we also have a trend line. If we actually zoom out, you can see Bitcoin. I drew a trend line here from 2021 where it bounced multiple times, it wicked down, and then it acted as resistance, and then it nearly wicked to it again. And this is actually near 58.8K. So again, not quite as low as 55K, but it's another area of confluence there. Now, what is something else we have to keep in mind? Anytime there's a bear market, or I should say anytime there's a cycle bottom, what forms? Bullish divergence. Just like we talked about with Fetch, right? Fetch had that bullish divergence, played out just as it did in 2022. So now, in 2022, we made a lower low in price, we made a higher low on the RSI on the weekly, and then that was the cycle bottom. So now, have we made a lower low in price yet? Well, if someone wants to say the lower low is 86K to 60K, where's the higher low in the RSI? You see what I'm saying? That's my only question here, is we haven't made that bullish divergence yet. I'm all for 60K being the cycle bottom, and then we're going to Valhalla right now, no turning back. But I'm just looking at probabilities here. And the fact that, let's just say, I know there's a lot of lines here, but let's just say, okay, price goes up, maybe gets up to 78K, comes back down, and then chops a little bit, goes down lower, and then finally gets down to this 53K level. And then bounces, okay? And then RSI at the time gets lower, kind of gets up a little bit, and now RSI is making that higher low, while price is making that lower low. Okay, that's what you want to see, and then that's the cycle bottom. That's what I would be happy with. And so 55K, could that be? That's what I'd be happy with. And then that would be October of this year, which historically we bottom 1 year after the cycle high. So that's what I would like to see to feel comfortable. Right now, I mean, seeing the RSI make lower lows and price making lower lows, I mean, it's not confident for 60K cycle bottom, and people are thinking that 60K is a cycle bottom. It's just, you just gotta look at statistics. So again, I'm a bull. I'm a bull all the way, but I'm just looking at probabilities here. So probabilistically, we could go up to 82 to 85K here. I'd be okay with that. I'd be okay, fine. 82 to 85K, that was fun, and now let's reject again. But realistically, I mean, let's see what happens after FOMC, when historically we do have a drop. And so Salo says, can you check render if you don't mind? Yeah, no problem. So hopefully that explained it, guys. The correlation between 2022 and now, which so many people are talking about, just the correlation. And now, and I just went into it deeper with these EMAs, with these fibs, with these pullbacks, right? Just to give you guys an idea of, okay, the high target here, 82 to 85K, the low target, 30K. The most likely target, 40K. If we're talking probabilities, 3 data sets for 40K, yes, we could have some data sets for 55K. I'd be fine saying either 55 or 40, but 40 would be like the low that most people aren't expecting. So that's why I'm saying 40 could be a great area. 38 to 40K could be a great area to long. I know Ed is actually looking for low targets as well. So just something to keep in mind. You just play in level by level. You have no emotions. And at the end of the day, that's that. But let's see. You said you wanted render. Salu. Yeah, let's do render real quick. Let's do the Binance chart. Okay. So render. So this is actually a trend line that I drew probably a few months ago. And it looks like I can extend this out and it's still playing out. Okay, so render, we have indicators look okay. RSI losing momentum. Stock RSI still curving to the upside. So not horrible. Let's look at the daily. Ooh, daily doesn't look good. Okay, yeah, so for render, you can see the 200 EMA, right? You can see the 200 EMA here. And actually, something I drew that I had on the chart that I just erased, I drew a bearish divergence where we had a higher high in price and a lower high in the RSI, and that just literally tanked us. So these divergences are extremely powerful. That's why I talk about them being cycle bottoms, bullish divergence, and then vice versa for cycle tops. But you can see the 200 EMA is acting as resistance. Okay, January 11th, September 18th, July 27th. I mean, you can see, and then we only go above it a little bit. So now you have trend line resistance on top of the 200 EMA. And on top of the RSI and stochastic RSI being overbought. So I think AI tokens need a breather right now. I think AI tokens need a little breather. Everyone's talking about Tau and Fetch now. I think we need to pull back, especially with the indicators where they're at in the daily. So, I mean, yes, render is at support. I mean, 185 is literally support. So if it holds this, if the daily closes above this, technically, okay, we can bounce up to probably $2. 2 to 220. I would feel comfortable saying the next big zone to short render. And let me go ahead and draw this. Would be around here. Okay. So this would be the next big zone. The short render would be around, right around these levels. Okay. $2 to 220. If we can get up here, I think we're gonna have a nice rejection on render. Again, still being in a bear market and everything. So that's what I would expect. If we do have a bounce here, I definitely take some profits in your $2 to 220 at the very least. But yeah, I do expect, if we do close the daily below 185, it's going to get ugly, right? At that point, at the bare minimum, I would look at 150. 150 for a potential bounce here because we had resistance, now turn support. So those are the levels I am watching for render. PENGU is very close to breaking out, Chicken Nugget says. All right, let's go ahead and check that out. Let me go ahead. Hope that helped you out, Salu. All right, so PENGU, Chicken Nugget says very close to breaking out. All right, let's see. Yes, it is Chicken Nugget. So 0081 is where that resistance is at, where we wicked up to. We're actually literally wicked to the same spot. 8203, 8189. So yeah. So big resistance point here. If PENGU can break out here, then at that point, I don't know if we're going 9.5. I would say the first level to watch out for is 8.6, right? This next major resistance point here. I'll look at that. And then after that, probably look around 9.5. But yeah, PENGU is close. I don't like how the stock RSI is overbought, but the RSI still has some room to go. So not horrible. Let's look at the 4 hour. 4 hours reset at least. So we still could go a little bit higher. I could see this actually. I could see us going a little bit higher and then forming a potential bearish divergence on the 4 hour. And at that point, you know, it takes us way down. That's a possibility, but meh. Yeah, I'd wait for a daily close. If we can't close the daily above 816, then PENGU is just going right back down. And where is it going down to? Well, at the very least, I'll look for around here, around 7.2. 7.2 would be the level I would buy at if we reject here, potentially. But I mean, the better support, if we're zooming out, better support would be where we bounced from last time, around 6.4. So yeah, PENGU needs some strength. PENGU needs some strength. I'm wondering if they have any catalyst upcoming or something to take it higher. But yeah, I mean, we have been in this let me go ahead and get in this little box area for a while now, right? Like in this little, in this little accumulation zone since the beginning of February. And so if we can break out of this, yeah, it's going to be a big deal, right? At that point, I mean, if we zoom out, yeah, at that point, you could see this being accumulation, right? Where you have like, okay, prices going down, finally some accumulation, and then we start going up higher, right? That's a possibility, but we definitely need to break out of this accumulation range, 100%. All right. Shim is saying lounge right after this, by the way. There you go, Shim. Shim getting those alpha lounges ready. There's a lot of good content in the alpha lounges, guys. So make sure if you have time, join those alpha lounges. I know that Shim, Ahmed, and a few other people talk about the latest AI tech using Claude and other AI agents. So very useful stuff, especially for productivity in your everyday life and also just creating some cool things. So definitely recommend joining the alpha lounges if you guys can. I'm trying to get more people active in here. But with that said, guys, I think that is going to do it. So I think we went over mostly everything. We could do a final with Bitcoin dominance real quick. but I think that right now Bitcoin dominance is still, staying in between it was staying in between its 50-day EMA. Or I should say, let me go back here. It's staying between its 100 weekly EMA and its 50-day EMA. So really just ping ponging in between here. So nothing crazy right here. Expecting probably to bounce off 58.5%. And then TOTAL3, TOTAL3 has been amazing. TOTAL3 bouncing off the 200 weekly EMA. It's a total market cap excluding Bitcoin and Ethereum. So we've seen right now, still has some room to go. I think the target I measured where we're gonna have some resistance is gonna be around 800 billion market cap. So 800 billion market cap, you can see we bounced multiple times off that 100 weekly EMA, expecting that to be some resistance. So look for 800 billion, guys. Good round number. A lot of big resistance there when we get there. So just some more levels for you guys to watch out for. But hope you guys enjoyed the stream. I'll definitely share you guys what we learned, or what is being learned in the alpha lounges, especially with AI and everything. Remember, Data's Alpha Circle 2.0 is going to be a crazy upgrade, guys. There's going to be a lot of stuff. It's going to be almost an unrecognizable group with a lot of stuff we're going to have. So we're listening to your feedback. If you guys haven't, please, I'll say it one more time, fill out the response form. It takes 2 to 3 minutes, and it helps us to really steer the group in the right direction, provide you more high quality calls, more content, more courses, more everything. So please fill it out if you haven't, guys. Appreciate it. It's anonymous. And thank you guys so much for watching. Hope you guys have a great week. Talk soon.